If you take action, baby steps, a little bit better every day, you start to create a belief system because of a pattern of trust that you built within yourself. We get so emotionally attached and we become our own problem because once you sell this stuff, if you know how to make money in real estate, just sell it. You can make more money, but you can't if it's robbing you of all your capacity. The purpose is bigger than one deal. And it's more important to find the right people to put in the partnership than to get the one deal done.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Chris Naugle, and welcome back to the Money School podcast, where you know what we talk about: money. We talk about you taking back control of your money. We talk about you becoming your own bank so that you no longer need the greedy, bastardized banking system. You just do what they do. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about getting put in the hospital, not knowing how to say your name, not knowing where you're at after you take first place in a 50-mile run. But that 50-mile run is your first run you ever did. I had the luxury of going on a run with this man. He's insane. We ran up in Jackson Hill. I think he only took me on like a 5 or 6 mile run, but it was in altitude. I thought I wasn't going to make it, but he runs 100-mile races. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about storage facilities, how he buys them, how he funds them, and how that has paved the way for what he does. Welcome, everyone. Brady McDonald, the CEO of Barefoot Land Company. What's up, buddy?
What's up, Chris? Thanks for having me.
Barefoot Land Company. Barefoot. You ever remember that?
Yeah, Barefoot. Yeah, I used to foot a lot.
Awesome. All right. Well, listen, we got to go right into this. I know you're an ultra marathon runner, which right out of the hole, most people listening, if you don't know what that means he runs stupid long distances for no apparent reason other than to say he did it and literally puts his life at risk. Did I get that right?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's not fun at all. It's type 2 fun. We like to call it type 2 fun.
And I love the story of your very first one, but I want to back up a little, Brady, and I want to talk about why you decided to embark on this journey to run. Your first one was this 50-mile run, but let me just preface this. It was a 50-mile run that he prepared for. However, the day of the run, it was 109 degrees Fahrenheit, 100% humidity. I'm sorry, I would have stayed in bed, but you're not like that. So where did this whole desire to run 50, 100 miles come from?
Yeah, it started actually back in 2021 is the very first thing I did was the 75 hard. That was the first hard thing I ever did. Cause up till then, the hardest thing I ever did was drink every weekend in most days. And so I did the 75-day hard. And so I stopped drinking for that 75 days. I changed my body, changed my mindset. And I could make the connection to being sober, being a better dad, being a better husband, to obviously getting rid of the booze, but doing hard things on purpose. And so I got through that 75 hard, but I just went back to old lifestyle, started hanging around the same friends, same people, same habits. And so I started getting into these longer endurance things. The first thing I did was a half Ironman. It went pretty good. I did another, and I stayed pretty sober. I wasn't drinking on the weekends and stuff. And then we adapt. We're hey, I can do an Ironman and drink at the same time. And so that just really crept back in my life, and business got really hard in 2022. The interest rates went from sub 1%. Most of our portfolio was in Canada, up to 7.5%. We were on variable. So it was screwing us, or we screwed ourselves, but we were bleeding like a mother effer. And we were on our boat one day in the Exumas, 53-foot boat. And I just had this epiphany. I watched my dad die because of, how hard he was on his body from alcohol and whatnot. And I just quit drinking. And that day I signed up for this 50-mile run. And now I had ran a marathon before, and it was absolutely horrendous. It was I bonked at 20 miles in. I said, why would anybody ever do this again? But when I quit drinking, I'm just I just knew that I needed to continue to do hard things and build on this momentum that I've created. And I knew by doing hard things on purpose, it would keep my head focused. It would give me purpose. It turned me into the person that I needed to become to accomplish the goals that I'm on a path to get. And so we started training for 3 months. I hired a coach and trained for 3 months. And yeah, and that day it was gnarly. It was, we started at 9 a.m. And it was already hot by then, and so the first 9 or 12 miles, I think first 12 miles to get over 7 Mile Bridge. And it was excruciating hot. And I had to figure out a system because I was just getting so frustrated and like trying to cool the body down. And so I figured out a system between mile 12 and like 18 where I would take a bag of ice and I would see my crew every 30 minutes. I'd get a bag of ice. I'd have it on my neck. I'd be running 4 minutes run, 1 minute walk. I could do that because that would keep my heart rate a little bit more manageable. During the walk, I'd stick the bag of ice in my groin because that helps bring the heart rate down. Take the ice or the water, dump it on my head, and I would just run for 4 more minutes. I would do that on and I did this nonstop and got to the finish line. Actually, before I got to the finish line, if you've ever been in Key West, I got lost because at that point, apparently I was a little bit delirious, took some wrong turns in the middle of the street. It was like an episode of a movie. There's a girl like on the second floor. She's like, sir, go down the street, turn right, go here. I'm like, okay. Like, anyway, long story short, I crossed the finish line. We didn't know what place I was in. So we hung around and we had no idea what we were doing. And I'm talking we because to do these endurance event, long events, it's not a solo effort. You have crew, right? Your family, friends help you along the way to get you fuel, hydrated, just solve problems, right? Because it's a long ways. It took about 11 hours and 40 minutes to cross that finish line. And but so I didn't hydrate myself and it just kept on getting worse. My wife eventually just said, like, get in the car. This is at about 11 o'clock at night. I'm taking you to the hospital. And because I couldn't hold down food. And we saw an ambulance en route. She pulled over. She's like, ma'am, you can't stop here. You have to keep going. And she pointed to them, like, to go look at me. And they looked at me immediately, threw me on a stretcher, rushed me to the hospital. And so I ended up with like severe dehydration and rhabdomyolysis, which is essentially the muscles of your body breaking down, deteriorating, and the proteins go into your blood. And then obviously it could poison you and kill you. Yeah, it was crazy. Like, I didn't know my daughter's names. I thought I ran in Canada because that's where we're from, but it was pretty terrifying. Right. And then, so that was a 3-day thing trying to get the blood back under control and test the brain, the heart, like you name it. I had a full body scan. It was $43,000 in tests.
And this is in the US, but you were from Canada. So does that mean you had to write the check?
We had health insurance. Thankfully.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, thankfully though, right? Because, yeah, and obviously, that was a bit of a mess, but nonetheless, it was pretty crazy. And in there, the craziest thing, like they discovered that I have this Epstein's anomaly. So it means that one of your heart valves doesn't close all the way. And so you get a leaky heart or leaky valve and unoxygenated blood. Anyway, so they're like, no, now you can't do anything. You can't work out. And I'm like, I'm trying to get out of this hospital. And they say this is right before I leave. They're like, you can't work out. You can golf. That's the only thing you can do. And I'm like thinking to myself, this is crushing me because I'm like, this is the path I need to be on. Right? Anyway, that's the story, man. It was, it was insane. Like, everybody thought I was dying for sure.
Well, you actually were dying.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever really thought about that. You were dying. If you didn't go to the hospital, a very good chance you probably could have died. But you know what? The fun part about that whole story and the wrap up is, most people after a near death experience like that would have been like, maybe I shouldn't do these long endurance runs. Maybe I'll do a couple half marathons. Maybe I'll strive and do a marathon. But no. You have done 3 ultras, which I believe are 100 miles, right? So if 50 wasn't enough, you now run 100 miles.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just like that's the cool thing about creating a belief system and taking lots of action, right? And you start to, if you take action, baby steps, what a little bit better every day, you start to create a belief system because of a pattern of trust that you built within yourself. And, if for example, just running is an easy anomaly, but this could be business, this could be relationships, this could be, doing whatever you want in life. But, lots of people say, like, there's no way I could run a 5K or a half marathon. Well, just start with half a mile or half a kilometer. Can you do that? Yes. Everybody goes and does that. Perfect. The next day you do a kilometer. You're like, wow, well, I never thought I could do a kilometer. And then you do a kilometer and a half the next week. And you realize, holy, you create this pattern of belief and trust within yourself because now you're starting to see it. And that's essentially, that's what I've done in business and in fitness as well. But, all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I think I could probably run 100 miles, which is insane. I don't know why you'd ever want to do that. But the reason I did, I I did 100, but I was like, hey, I'm going to run 100 miles, part of the 0 to 100, strategy and mindset. And I'm going to raise $100,000 for charity, children's charity. And so that was part of the mission is, purpose. Yeah. And that's part of it too, is it's really fun, to do these things. It's great to do it for yourself, because you have to be selfish a little bit. You have to actually in life be selfish, because it's actually the most selfless thing that you can be. Because if you're not great, you can't serve everybody else great, but it's really cool when you can inspire and motivate and be the leader to show other people what's possible. And running 100 miles does that to a certain extent, but also being able to tie into how philanthropy, like how you can raise money and help charities, like 100 grand. We ended up raising 85,000 in 3 months personally, right? From friends and family like yourself, Chris, actually. I didn't believe you donated. Yep. So yeah, it was super cool. And having that purpose, just drives me.
I love it. And there's so much that could be said. And I don't want to spend this whole thing on purpose, but purpose is really the differentiator. I don't care if it's in business, in life, if you're down, if you lack purpose, then you can't, you're really, you're going to have a hard time getting out of the rut you're in. I talk to a lot of, military men and women, one of them works with me and we talk all the time about this. They have such a purpose when they're overseas or when they're in war. Like we'll talk about the Iraq war, which is the one I'm most familiar with. When they're there, they have a purpose. They're trained. They're doing what they were called to do, and they're doing it for a very defined purpose. And then all of a sudden, one day, it's over. And then they're put back into society without any real roadmap of what this is like. So your whole purpose is literally flipped upside down. And now all of a sudden you're just supposed to exist. And this is why, PTSD, and you got all these issues, these mental disorders, and I'm not just picking on military. There's a lot of, this and a lot of different things for trauma. But, the biggest thing, that we always talk about, is purpose. It's just a lack of purpose. It's a lack of a goal and where you're going and who you want to be. And I think that's what you found, is you found this purpose, and that purpose has created this awesome thing that you do now, and we'll get into that. We'll get into 0 to 100 day challenge and what you do and how that's really helped not just others with what money you raise, but also your own family, your 2 girls, like just what that's meant to them. And you couldn't have done it. I'll tell you this right now, maybe you'll disagree, but you could not have done that without the purpose, because 100%. That purpose is what keeps you going in the hardest times. And I can't even fathom what it would be like to run 100 miles. I sincerely can't. I ran when we did that run up in Jackson Hole, like how that all happened. I was running every single day, 7 days a week. On occasion, I would take a Sunday off, but I was running every single day. And I did, just little steps, First run is usually just around my block. It's about 1.5 miles. Then after that, I would just go further and I'd run this loop and this loop and this loop. And it starts to become a challenge because you just find all these new things and you see things. When you drive, you miss so much. When you run, you just take it all in. You hear the birds, you hear everything, you see the rabbits, you see the squirrels, you literally just, it's a whole different experience. So you almost get addicted to just that. And that's what I did. But to me, like the longest I went was 6 miles. And that 6 mile run was a challenge. You're fighting at the end, you're fighting a lot of things. And then the next couple of days you just hurt, or at least I did. So I can't even fathom what it's like to run 100 miles and how you feel for the next week after that. But then yet you get the courage to go do it again. And that's that purpose. So I love what you do with that. So let's just take a second and go back. So in Canada, you did a lot of real estate. Okay. And when you were doing real estate in Canada, like that kind of paved the way. But today, Barefoot Land Company is mostly just storage, right? You just do storage facilities. So how did you make the transition from just like, let's talk a little bit about the real estate and, experience, because you mentioned you were having trouble, but then you found storage. So how did that all happen?
Yeah. So in Canada, we started investing in 2015, and within up there, they do a lot of conversions from a single family home to duplexes. And then, so we did a lot, we started doing that. And then we ended up doing a lot of detached accessory dwelling units, ADUs in the backyards. So when we started, like it was just my wife and I, and then we ended up having a construction company and property management company. We built the portfolio of a couple hundred properties. We've done it probably a few hundred now, but we built at the top, it was probably a couple hundred properties, multifamily properties. And we did it all through joint venture partnerships. So we would split they would be the money partner, qualify for the mortgage, and we would do all the work. We'd source the deal, do all the construction at cost, et cetera. So it worked really good for everybody, obviously. And we built the portfolio up. And so in-house construction, property management, all the things. So when we came down to the US, well, during COVID in 2021,
Oh, goodness.
right after I did the 75 hard, I had courage, like, because I was sober for the first time in my life, for longer than 3 or 4 days. And I took the family to Costa Rica for 4 months because I'm like, I'm not going to be locked down, right? And so when we came back, it was amazing, right? We stuck fairly healthy lifestyle. I was not drinking too much, just socializing a little bit, maybe ripped it up a few times. But when we came back, that was the time when you had to fly into Buffalo. Because if you flew into Toronto, you'd go to the COVID jail. That's how Canadians were. And still probably are a little crazy like that. But
they're still rocking masks, driving in the car all alone.
That's right. And so we flew to Buffalo, was in a limo on the way home, and they locked us down again. I said to my wife, I'm like, next winter, we're going away. And we're going to the US to scale business and scale life. So November came. So we went back and partied all day, all summer, like, normal lifestyle that like the old Brady, right? And drinking and carrying on and having a great summer. In December, this is when I met you, Chris. I actually drove. So we packed our big vehicle up, our expedition with all the kids' stuff. And we said, we're going to the US. And we didn't know a soul. And so remember, I drove from Canada and I met you at Chris Rude's mastermind.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so we went to that mastermind because I said, I need to go down here and figure out what works in the US. Obviously it's not going to be conversions. That's not a big thing, not everywhere anyway. And so I went there to meet, a bunch of people like you to figure out what are all the strategies and then what are we going to do? And so that's where I decided, okay, I learned about storage and we're just going to focus. I'm done with tenants and toilets. We're gonna do storage, but first I'm gonna drive my butt to Florida or down South Florida because that's where we knew one soul, and we started making offers. We're gonna flip a bunch of houses to make some money, do some get some U.S. capital in the bank, and so we did that. We bought 6 properties pretty quickly in the first couple months, and then and we started renovating those and building that little company up. In the meantime, we found a couple deals in Houston, Texas for storage, and so we're kind of doing both things. And then we got hit by a hurricane, which basically wiped out all the roofs on all these flips. And then that's when the interest rates, we got these 2 deals so we raised all the equity through syndications on these 2 big Class A self-storage facilities. They're like 130,000 net rentable square foot facilities. And then the interest rates just skyrocketed. So now you think about, I have hundreds of properties in Canada on variable rates. I got all these hurricane hit houses that you can't sell them with open insurance claims. So you have to pay cash, and then getting debt on these, storage facilities is just like impossible. It was the perfect storm, right? But this is how we cut our teeth. And that's how we got into the US, but it was really a jump in with both feet, figure it out, and the goal was to ultimately get in so deep, and at least in the US, that we couldn't get out. And it worked so far. We're not leaving. So that's how we got into storage. And so it was not without trials and tribulations. And I can tell you right now, it is not still without trials and tribulations. We are still trying to get debt. I mean, the debt market for this type of asset. It's if you have, if you're not Canadian and you have a really strong track record of history, then it's possible. Still very challenging. And so a lot of the syndicators in the self-storage development world are pretty much gone. Like they're not existent. And so when debt got hard, I said, okay, well, how can we still stay in storage, utilize our expertise in what we've done in Canada, which we did a lot of land development there, entitlements. I understood that because I did it all myself. And so we built a company, which is Barefoot Land Company, to source land off market across the entire country, specifically for the development of Class A self-storage. So in markets, a self-storage market is 3 miles, right, radius. And so in markets that have strong rental rates, good population, good income, that isn't oversaturated, high traffic, et cetera, all that hit all these key metrics. And ideally we try to find the parcels that are permitted use, but most of those, because that's just from a approval standpoint for getting these entitled sites, it's just obviously a lot easier. The entitlement's already there. You can just go build it. But a lot of those areas are highly saturated. So then a lot of the sites that we find are special use, conditional use, or rezone required. But we have the skills and team to go through that pain, invest the capital, do the designs, and actually go through that jurisdictional approval process, where at the end we'll have a marketable parcel of land that is prime for self-storage. That is also has a really high barrier to entry for other competitors, which is a great thing to market. And so that's what we did. And so like right now we've got 8 or 9 sites under contract that are moving through an entitlement phase. And we'll end up developing some of those, but a lot of them we'll end up selling them, essentially wholesaling or flipping the paper to other big developers that have the debt and have the equity, and they can actually take it from the ground up.
Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up. And, I know you've probably said that at the mastermind, but that's the first time it's really sank in. And, listen, folks, like one of the things I want you to really pay attention to what Brady just said is, you remember, he didn't say he was developing these and renting these and managing these. He's just doing all of the work that takes all the time and energy and headaches, and he's getting it all ready. So literally he could just say, hey, this thing's all ready to go. Who wants it to put self-storage on? I mean, literally then a construction company, a developer, or somebody in that space just comes in and boom. That is brilliant, because you're doing a service. You're solving a problem that very few people want to solve, that is highly there's a lot of skill it takes to understand all those things you just said. And I tell this to people all the time, because this is just how you get wealthy. You focus on one thing and you become the best at that one thing. I think one of the problems, that so many real estate investors have, and it sounds like you kind of had a little bit of this. It's like that Family Guy episode where, he's going around, he's like, ooh, piece candy, ooh, piece candy, ooh, piece candy. There's so many facets to real estate, and there's so many entries, like you can get into all these things that, I'm going to be a wholesaler. Oh, no, then I'm going to flip. Oh, no, then I'm going to do burrs. Oh, no, then I'm going to do multifamily. Oh, hey, now I'm going to do syndications. I'm going to raise money for a fund. And all of a sudden, you're out of business because you literally just didn't focus on the one thing that you know, like, and understand. And that's what you did. And I love it. Now, I got a question for you. So a lot's happened and a lot's still happening in the real estate world. A lot of things are getting flipped upside. Banking is pretty much, you alluded to it, but I'll just confirm it. Banks are literally seizing up. They are literally just not lending. And I know you're looking at the news and you're like, oh, what do you mean? JP Morgan Chase and Citi and Bank of America, they're all reporting better than expected, earnings. Yeah, because all of you and all of us are paying higher interest because the Fed literally is in bed with the banks, and they're just raised rates, which now makes everything more expensive. And of course they're profitable, but it doesn't change the fact that the environment is so hard right now for real estate. So one of the things that everybody needs to do is just pick one. Now, in your situation, with everything that's going on, you never closed the door on all those, what's going on with all the properties you had in Canada and all those flips you had in the US? Like, what's going on with those?
Right. Yeah. So we ended up selling. So we ended up going into emergency mode because we were bleeding anywhere from 300 to 800,000 a month.
Oh,
and because the interest rates, developments, unfinished, all those roofs and all that stuff. So we ended up getting unemotional to, because rates were increasing, prices were declining. Right. And so what we were ending up doing was chasing the market down, because we were, using, hey, if the value is 500, we're going to list it at 515. And that didn't work. So we just removed all the emotion and just said, listen, we're going to sell all the red ones as fast as possible. And so that freed up a lot of capital. And it also freed up bandwidth. I mean, that's the biggest thing. It's just we get so emotionally attached and we become our own problem, because once you sell this stuff, if you know how to make money, or you know how to make money in real estate, just sell it. You can make more money, right? But you can't if it's robbing you of all your capacity.
Yeah, you're hooked onto the ship that's going down to the bottom.
100%. Yeah. So we just ended up start selling them fast. We sold all the US stuff as fast as we could. I mean, it still took probably 8 months to get back in a position where we weren't terrified every night. But and then we started liquidating our Canadian portfolio. And the reason why we're doing that is so we can become a US tax citizen and take advantage of all the tax code here. Because in Canada, there's just, the taxes are insane, right? Here we're pretty much 51% in capital gains. And yeah, it's just crazy. So we just said, okay, well, although we're selling it at the bottom of the market, we're not going to wait another 5 years for this to come up. We can probably save that in taxes if we become a US tax citizen. So we're just sell them. So we'll be out of Canada by the end of this year. Nice. And then just be, full US tax citizen going forward.
I love it. So let's transition. So Trudeau's gone from Canada and Trump's saying, hey, you should become the 51st state of the US. What do you think?
We should, 100%.
You think it'll ever happen?
There's no doubt. Although I don't want to go back there because I still love the people here. But yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah.
Oh, that'd be something. He's got big ambitions, but I don't know. That's a really big one. So we'll see what happens. I think focus on Greenland. I think you might have a good shot at finding Greenland.
Yeah.
I don't know about Canada. I don't know. I had to do that. So all right, let's talk a little bit about 0 to 100. You got this challenge you started, and I want to talk about that, but I also want to transition into how is your family part of this?
Yeah. So the challenge. So every time I would go and I speak across the United States, you've heard me, Chris, and I'll go on stage and I'll talk about, all of the horrible and the bad stuff and the drinking and the partying, but there's success in there, but limiting success because of my habits. Right. And so part of the story is doing that 75-day hard, right? Which is 2 workouts a day, no alcohol, obviously no drugs, eating healthy, reading 10 pages of a personal development book, etc. There's, these rules. And I crushed it and changed my body. It changed my mindset. It changed, we took the family to Costa Rica for 4 months, came back and, things, we came to the US, a lot of great things came from that. So I'll go on stage, I'll speak on stage, and 40% of the people will sign up to do that challenge. But within the first week, 90% of those people drop out because it's unrealistically hard. It's so, you have to do 2 workouts. One has to be outside. It's just a lot. And so I'm if I'm going to do this and speak from stage and empower people, help give them the habits, I need something that's actually going to work, that they can actually do, that can be a lifestyle change versus a 75-day thing that they do once and never do again. So that's where we came up with the 0 to 100-day challenge. And it's a health challenge. It's 45 minutes of exercise per day because movement is medicine. There's 4 things that kill not 80% of us, right? There's heart disease, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, issues with the brain, etc. Health and fitness and movement of your body will actually eliminate 80% of those. So that's why that. So 45 minutes working a day, eat healthy, eat clean, no junk food, no fast food. Okay. And so counting macros, that's just the second thing. No alcohol or drugs is the other thing. And then the last one is just simply getting enough sleep and planning for the next day. Right?
What is enough sleep? How much is enough sleep?
7 to 8 hours a day.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody's a little bit different. I get anywhere from 6.5 to 8 if I'm really tired, but normally 7 is what I get. And we're gonna know, right? And so I mean, if anybody ever drinks even if it's just 1 glass of wine, or your sleep is gonna be destroyed. So that is gonna help a lot, But yeah, this literally we started it about a year ago, and we've had over 1,000 people sign up. Probably not all of those people went through it, right? But a lot of them have gone through it, and they lose 25 to 30 pounds, and they just become better people, right? They have more courage, more confidence, and they get the same results that I was hoping for, the same results that I had, right? And it's doable. If you miss a day, you just double up the next day. It's real life. And so it's been a lot. It's been great. So we do an accountability huddle every Wednesday at noon. It's completely free. We don't charge for any of this. We actually give out 0 to 100 hats for free. Because to me, this is just the way to give back. I mean, I've been fortunate to have success, and I just know that if I can help somebody get on a healthier path, that it will change their life and it will change their kids' lives. Because the fact about kids, and this with your daughter, they just watch us. They want to do what we do. And so when I look back at me being a kid, I remember I just wanted to stay up late and party because that's all I saw. And so when I was 14, I saw, and that's what I did, right? And we that's what started those habits that young. Well, my kids do triathlons. They have personal trainers. Well, the one does, she's 10, and the other one's 4. And so we have a personal trainer for one. That's just expected. That's just normal for her because that's what we do, right? And so when you see this and when you start to be the leader of your family and you see the kids follow, it's so fulfilling. And not only that, your parents start to follow, right? My mom has been more active now than she's ever been. And you really become somebody, you start to actually change people's lives. And this is not hard. Any one of us can do it, right? So
So
that's what this is all about.
Yeah, we're going to put that link up. So, any of you listening to this, like it's a new year, you're setting your priorities for the year. Maybe you already did. Maybe it's time to add one more. Maybe, you set some big goals and you're just like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do them." Well, you can, but like, let's put this in there to get it kicked off the right way. So we'll put that link up at the end. Take the challenge and do the work. Now, I got another question for you. Like, and this is kind of just more of a personal question. Like my daughter's 4, she'll be 5 in May. Your daughter's 4. Is your daughter into Paw Patrol? Just ask it.
No, but what's a little bit of Paw Patrol. We don't really watch too much shows, so she watches YouTube. I should just get her on.
That's all my daughter does. We don't even turn the TV on.
Yeah, yeah. But what's the guy that Blippi? How about Blippi?
Blippi. Well, Blippi was 3 years old. So like between 2.5 and 3, she was into Blippi.
Yeah,
and then,
yeah.
I kind of got into Blippi too. I'm like, this dude's worth how much money? And all he does is be an idiot. And then Blippi kind of flipped. And then there was a new Blippi that I didn't like the new Blippi. And Vivi didn't like the new Blippi either.
Perfect. Thankfully.
So we found Paw Patrol. And now holy cow, our house is literally Paw Patrolled.
Oh, that's awesome. You know what? It's funny. My kids, like, we will go and chill I go to bed at 8:30, the same time as the girls did. And they're watching like ultra marathon runs on YouTube these days.
Your 4-year-old too?
Yes, they both sit there and that's what they want to watch. I'm like, all right. And we watch these. I'm like, these girls are going to be just way crazier than I will.
Oh my goodness. That's wild at 4.
Yeah. It's interesting.
So cool. Yeah, no, it's such an honor just to have kids and, especially like, being a dad with little girls, it's just so awesome. I mean, I only have 1, you have 2. It's your why, right? It's why you do everything. And it's interesting, I wonder, if we were to ask everybody listening, how many folks that listen to this actually go to bed around the same time we do, around 8:30, 9 o'clock, like clockwork. Like I'm done at 8:39. Like I got nothing left. But then I'm up at 5 o'clock at the gym. I go down, have my protein shake and coffee, and then I'm at the gym. And I try to do that every single day when I'm not sick. That's the only thing. Like, I don't know if you like how you handle that. Like you get these sicknesses from the kids and it just wipes you out. And then you just like, I was off working out for, let's say 2 weeks. From Christmas till just a couple days ago. And dude, now being in the gym, I think it's still because I'm sick, but I feel like I just went in the gym for the first time in my life.
Like starting all over. Yeah.
Like how can your body lose that much? Like just
it probably didn't. You're probably still sick. Yeah. Man. Yeah. That's all it'd be. You're just worn down. You still need rest. And like when I'm sick, I don't work out. I don't train. It's just your body just takes so much longer. You did the right thing. But sometimes it just takes. The other thing my coach will always say is like training in your body. It's not just like a straight line. Like your body sometimes feels great. Sometimes it doesn't. Right. And so it's like you go on these runs or do these efforts. It's like, why do I feel this way? It's like, this is not good. And he's like, it's just the way it is. It's just not a static thing, our bodies. So it's all good.
No.
You just need a bit more time.
Yeah, I'm just on this thing. I'm like going to the gym every day. I'm like, I'm getting back because I hate the way I feel. It's just like today I did a hard workout and I thought I was going to pass out walking out to my truck. But nonetheless, anyway, we're just rambling here. But one final thing, Brady, like as we wrap this up, like with Barefoot Land Company, like what does the next 5 years look like for you?
All right. So I'm a big proponent of believer in vision boards. So we've created a vision board back in 2015. We got a lot of those things. The next one was 2020, which we had like the Canadian US flag with like getting to the US and a whole bunch of other stuff. We got, most of those things. And it's not like I'm going after it, but it's just like when you create such a clear vision and you take massive action and never quit, you just happen to get that stuff because you know where you're going. It's the destination on a GPS. And so I've got on right behind me is my vision board right there. It's got 0 to 100, family, fitness, relationship, business. There's a check I wrote for $500 million right there. And so that the dollar amount for some reason I'm not a money driven person. I'm more like, I think purpose and like building things great and becoming a great human. I just know if I get $500 million, I can help a lot more people. And then if I got 100 more, 100, any amount, I can help more either way. But I think money puts a magnifying glass on the person, right? So I just created that goal, and we are working on building a development company that's outside of those other two storage deals. And that is like with some insane people. And so just a different marketing, different capital raising structure, not syndications through creating a development, like a self GCing strategy where we can extract equity, during the construction process. So a very rinse and repeatable strategy. And we're obviously creating the deals. So we've got great deal flow, more than probably most developers in the US, because this is all we're looking for. We have 20 staff finding great sites. And if we can solve I don't want to raise equity. I don't want to like syndicate deals that way, but we've got some really great equity partners that have lots of capital. And if we can just rinse and repeat that. So that's part of it, is creating this development company, still staying very focused on the Barefoot Land Company, because that's just the cash cow. And that's from a business perspective, that's what it looks like. And I think making sure I stay within the guardrails. And I think to your point, like one of the biggest challenge for most investors is staying focused. And I've had that problem. Like I got really focused probably 6 months ago, because we were doing car washes and self-storage. But once I just focused purely on self-storage, everything got better. Like the focus, the momentum, the systems, the operations, everything just got better. And so, that's the path that we're on. We're just building the machine right now, and creating the right relationships so we can, do a huge sale eventually, probably 5 to 10 years.
I love that. Yeah. And I love the fact, I know, well, Jesus, feels like it wasn't that long ago that we were talking about it. You were raising money in the syndications. And, I'm the first one to say it. Like, I've never believed in the syndication model. I think there's too many holes in it. I think it's a dangerous proposition for the limited partners. I invest in a couple syndications, but it's all because of the operators that I invest with, that I believe in what they're doing. But I've seen so many risque syndications be done out there that, like, literally I've always just taken this neutral stance. I've never said anything really bad about them, but I'm not the guy that would go out there and help somebody raise money for a syndication, just because I've seen so many fail. I've seen so many of the pref returns get cut. I've seen capital calls. I've seen just carnage in that industry. And it's all relative to what's going on in the economy and all the things you talked about in this podcast episode. So I'm really happy that you switched gears. You found some equity partners, because now they're in with the same goal, and now everybody's aligned to go the same place with it. And that's when things really move, and you're starting to see that. And, kudos to you for that, because that's a really difficult thing. A lot of people won't go that route. They're like, I can do this. I'm not going to bring, partners in. I'm not going to, give up equity. And I understand it. But you got to decide where you want to be someday and how you're going to get there. And to be honest, I'm not saying you can't get there with the syndication model, but there's more of a chance that it's going to fail than it's going to succeed, in my opinion. And I don't know what you think about that, but that's just, I've done a lot of research on it, and I've always been very scared of it. But I don't know if you have any take on that or.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think when you start to syndicate, like, it takes you away from your core business and your core, what you're actually good at. So then you created another business, right? And so it's like, which one are you going to be good at? When we're talking about focus, well, it's hard to be really great at raising equity, dealing with 200 investors, but investor relations, running a portal, creating all this stuff, as well as sourcing great developments, developing the development, leasing it up, being a great operator. And so what do you like, if you're half good at raising capital, half good operator, there's a high risk that it's going to fail. You're right. And so I just think, like, if we stop being, we just have to have a bigger outlook on, if the purpose is bigger than one deal, then it's more important to find the right people to put in the partnership than to get the one deal done. Cause it like everything is getting infinitely easier, not purely because I've, met the right people. Mm-hmm. But that all starts with becoming the right person.
That's
right?
True.
Like I wasn't the person that could have these relationships 2 years ago.
Yeah, if you're drinking all the time and partying, and it's just like, listen, I go to a lot of masterminds, and I don't drink a lot. Like, I don't know if you've ever watched me at the masterminds. Everybody's partying. You'll never really see me go out to the parties unless it's something fun, And I usually, like, you'll see maybe one beer in my hand the entire night, and I just watch people pounding it. They can't talk. You can't even have a conversation, and that's what I remember when I see that. I'm just like, that's not a person I would do business with. Not because they know how to have a good time and go out there, and I'm the dude that doesn't have a good time. It's just because my focus is different. Like, my focus is just not on that anymore. Been there, done that, just like you. But it's just like, that makes a difference. And anybody listening to this, like, I don't know how to put it to you. Like, listen, there's a time to have a good time. There's a time to go out and have fun. And listen, I'm not saying don't do that, but just realize, if your goal is a $500 million check, then unfortunately what you got to do is change you just got to change everything you do and get really serious about that. And when you're shooting for hundreds of millions of dollars or a massive business that you're building, there's just no time for hangovers. There's just no time to sleep an extra hour in the morning because you had, 3 too many beers at night, and you're just like, oh, I'm just going to sleep in an extra day. There's just no time for anything other than forward progress. And I think your entire story, Brady, is a testament to that. When you want something, you got to get so serious that literally you would die to accomplish the goal. And that is the God's honest truth. And I'm gonna finish with this. Many of you, and definitely any of you that are around our age, you've seen the movie Fight Club. Now, there's a scene in Fight Club that is to me profound. And it's the scene where Tyler walks into that convenience store, drags that convenience store clerk out back, puts a gun to his head, is looking at his wallet and his driver's license, and asks him, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" He wanted to be, I think it was a veterinarian. And he said, "You're working at a convenience store. Are you in school?" Whatever the whole scene was, but that's not important. At that point, Tyler's got a gun to his head, and he said he's going to kill him because he's not doing what he set out in life to do. He is not chasing his dream. And at the end, he says, "I have your driver's license. If, whatever, tomorrow or 3 months from now, you are not chasing that dream. If you are not back in school chasing what you want to do, I'm going to fucking kill you." Can you, and then could you just imagine when he left and went home and had his meal, how good that meal tasted, how good he slept that night. But like, sometimes in life, I hate to say it, but some people, maybe someone should put a gun to their head and say, if you don't start living the life you are meant to live, you're going to be, I'm going to kill you. And I know that sounds awful, but like, honest to God, like, that's the purpose. And that is what we're here for, is to chase our dreams. Brady, you've done it. And I started with that story with this in mind at the end. You almost died doing something that you set your mind to. And that has created a whole new dynamic of who you are and what you do. And, now 0 to 100-day challenge and how you're serving others, and you're doing it just to give, to give, to give. You were willing to die for that. And kudos to you. So any last words or advice you would give based on that?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Chris. I think what I've learned just on that giving part is that I used to think that I had to make more money so I could give more. And that what I really learned over the last, 10 years now, looking back, and after I've, got out of my own way, is that the more I give, the more I get.
Universal law.
And it's the truth, right? But it starts with our body, right? We need to, when you can look after and prioritize your body, you will then develop your mindset. You take massive action and never quit. Anybody listening to this can accomplish anything that they want in life, but it does take killing the old version of you. So in theory, you actually need to pull the trigger.
Yeah. You need to kill the old you
and be ready to just make a new you. And that's okay. That's like, I probably killed myself 100 times over, and I'll do it again because I need to become that person that is worthy of that $500 million check. Right.
Yeah. That's what makes you one of the 1%ers. And that's literally what it is. There's the 5%, the 95%, but then there is the 1%. And folks, I want every one of you listening to this podcast to be the 1%, but the journey and the obstacles you're going to have to go through to hit that 1%, it's nothing but pain. And you're going to just have to push through it. You're going to have to learn to love it. because of what you will become at the end. I mean, it's no different than the eagle story or the caterpillar that becomes a butterfly. That metamorphosis is painful. The eagle has to break its beak off and rip its claws out just to become who it was meant to be. That's you, folks. You got to kill the old you. With that being said, Brady, we're going to put that link up for 0 to 100-day challenge. But is there anything else that people should be looking at or doing to follow you?
I think just follow on Instagram or Facebook, brady.mcdonald84. Yeah, the website for, is 0to100.com. So you can go on there and register for the challenge. And we've got some cool calendars on there to help track healthy habits. And we raise, we do donations and all kinds of philanthropy things on there. So follow along. We'd love to help you in any way as well on your journey. So
I love it. All right, folks. Well, you heard it best. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Money School podcast. Go out there, change your life, give, and give. And the universe will give back in abundance. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.